When J.D. Vance wore the rare Vance meme on Halloween, the day that the veil is the thinnest between the material and the spiritual, not only did he turn what is meant to mock him into something mythical, but to individuals like me, he showed his hand.
Happy Halloween, kids, and remember, say thank you.
Because I know J.D. Vance has a relationship with Peter Theil, and Peter Theil is responsible for getting NATO as well as the U.S. government to recognize memes as a type of psychological warfare. Peter Theil has mobilized and funded an entire subsect of the culture around memes and memetic warfare, and in fact, he is responsible for a ton of contemporary literature on memes that actually goes back all the way to the 1980s and various Blackwater deep state projects. And in this video, we're going to explore the entire companies Peter Theil has started that are directed at controlling the narrative via memes and via culture. So maybe, just maybe, the rare Vance meme and phenomenon and the entire story surrounding J.D. Vance dressing up as the super viral meme of himself might have been orchestrated by J.D. Vance and Peter Theil the entire time. I know this sounds insane, but watch this video and we're going to get to the bottom of it, and I'm going to show you the proof.
Introduction and meme magic, baby.
J.D. Vance just harnessed the powers of an ancient Egyptian chaos god using something called a meme magic. And Peter Theil, the billionaire who is trying to trap everybody into a digital prison, helped him do so. I know that you probably think that sounds kind of crazy, but I have documentation from the CIA to prove that they believe that memes are literal spiritual warfare things. The CIA's been studying memes since the 1980s. So literally 60 years ago, they were looking into what Pepe the Frog means and how to 6'7". They've been looking into this stuff for like 40, 50, 60 years now. Okay, you got to remember, we are in a spiritual war that has been alchemized digitally. This digital war is not one of the past. This is not a crusade where you have people fighting with swords and guns and whatever else. This is a war that is an information war that is fought using information, and your soul is the one in the middle of it. And in order for your soul to come out victorious and not become trapped in something like the Palantir, you have to know your shit. You gotta know your SHIT, baby. You gotta know the SHIT. And that's what we're gonna do today. We're gonna make sure that you know that SHIT. We're gonna get you learning all your stuff, boy. Because when I connect these dots for you and show you that J.D. Vance and Peter Theil are working together to use memes in a magical way in order to assert and consolidate power over the rest of the planet, it's going to blow your mind, because this research absolutely blew my mind. I be blowing my own mind every day and shit. I be blowing my own motherfucking mind every day and shit. I say it every video, but for the new people, this is the Palantir cam, and every time I say something naughty, I get trapped in the Palantir. Now, interestingly enough, Peter Theil actually named the Palantir after Lord of the Rings, and in this video, we're going to show how much nerdy shit he's actually into. It's a lot of nerdy shit, and hopefully it don't get me trapped in a little orb. I'm going to be trapped in a little orb. But as I do every single episode, I need to calcify. So Strasvutia. It's a fresh one. Now that's a guzzler. Ooh, man. This is a 12-ouncer. I don't know how I used to like chug alcohol and beer. Double guzzler. Oh shit, okay. Alright. Well, how did JD Vance do this? Well, what he did was he essentially embodied a meme that was making fun of him. And when he did this, the meme that was making fun of him is based off of another meme that is literally using meme magic that has been being studied by the CIA and by people like Peter Theil for the last 50 years. And on this channel, we don't believe in any coincidences. And JD Vance and Peter Theil are quite good friends. And we are going to explore and linearly go over this entire story together.
The careful construction of J.D. Vance's identity mommy.
Now, in order to get to know JD Vance a little better, we need to look at his good friend, Peter Theil. Now, Peter Theil is one of those individuals who's kind of like Bill Gates. And once his name entered the zeitgeist and the conspiracy lexicon, people immediately just attach Peter Theil bad to everything, which is true. But they don't know why Peter Theil bad, right? They don't know why Peter Theil wants to trap people in the Palantir, right? Saying Peter Thiel's bad put me in the Palantir, right? People don't understand that, and this is very typical, right? And on this channel, we do things like expand and explore past these trivial things, right? We want to learn why things are the way they are. So Peter Theil is a billionaire investor, entrepreneur, and political strategist who operates at the intersection of tech, finance, and ideology. He co-founded PayPal, right? So within the sort of conspiracy world, there is something called the PayPal Mafia. Now, if you don't know who the PayPal Mafia is, it's important that you do, because the PayPal Mafia is a group of individuals like Peter Theil who have very powerful connections to the sort of tech finance world. People like Elon Musk, Peter Theil, Sam Altman, the creator of OpenAI, ChatGPT, and Sora, right? It's all of these individuals. And these people have consolidated a lot of power. And moving forward, they want to create, control, and destroy as much as possible. And that's what Theil does. He does this in many ways. He has companies like the Founders Fund, and there's a ton of companies he has that we can go over, but we're going to go over the important ones today, right? The main one being Palantir. Palantir is a software used by the CIA, the NSA, the FBI, the Pentagon, and by ICE, really. And what it does is it creates these database platforms and infuses it with national security. So it's basically this massive superstructure that people are worried is going to lead to more government overreach and things like the potentiality for a social credit score, right? In the United States, we have a credit score for our finances, but in other countries like China, they have a credit score for their behavior. Now, the reason that this is concerning is because who is deciding what behavior is bad, right? If I criticize Peter Theil, who owns Palantir, maybe my criticism is warranted, but maybe he takes advantage of me because he owns the company and I get negative 500 good boy points. I get negative 500 Theil bucks, and then I end up living in a home. I end up in a little home. I don't want to be in a home forever. Now, where this gets controversial is the CIA and, various other government agencies have already been using Palantir, right? It's already been being used, and foreign friends of the United States have also been using this in projects like Project and Project Lavender. I went over this extensively here, and there are a bunch of keywords I cannot say because if I do, this video will not enter the algorithm. So you can check it out here. It involves a country that we are great friends with. Oh, thank you so much. We love you. And if I even start going down that rabbit hole, we'll never stop because, man, do I have a chip on my shoulder with those people. But the thing with Peter Theil that gets nefarious is he has all of these interests like finance, politics. He also injects a ton of money into influencers and creators and, digital artists. And he invests money into these people in order to control the narrative, right? When you can control the narrative, you can control the mythology that is told about you. And to someone who is obsessed with Lord of the Rings, controlling the mythos surrounding you and your name is very, very important. Especially when you have an affinity for the Antichrist like Peter Theil does. But let's talk more about this mythology surrounding the name, because J.D. Vance has actually publicly changed his name several times. In fact, we are currently on J.D. Vance's fourth name. Originally, he went by James Donald Bowman. He then went by James David Hamill. Then he went by James J.D. Vance. And now he is known as J.D. Vance. So James J.D. Vance is a legal stylization that he changed to J.D., right? So these are the name changes he's undergone, probably at the behest of Theil, right? Because Theil is all about shifting the narrative and sculpting yourself into something that is mythological, perhaps. It's all about making yourself a part of a fantasy, which is extremely interesting because the beginning of Theil and Vance's relationship begins at Mithril. That's right. Mithril is the first job that J.D. Vance got after law school, and he worked at Mithril Capital, which was a venture capital firm that was founded by Peter Theil. And Mithril is actually a fictional silvery white metal from J.R.R. Tolkien's writing, and it is known for being lighter than a feather, but stronger than steel. You know when Frodo gets stabbed by the goblins inside of the mines of Moria, he's wearing mithril, and that's what saves him. He also gets stabbed by a ring wraith, and this is what saves him as well. Okay, actually, it's a large orc in the mines of Moria that was shown as a troll in the movies, but it's a large orc in the books. Then he's stabbed by the Witch King, so I was a little bit off there, but I fixed it. Now, this gave Vance access and exposure to Theil's network, culture, and investment style. And what's even more interesting about this aspect is Vance went to Yale Law School. And if you know anything about Yale, it is synonymous with the Skull and Bones. Now, Skull and Bones can take its own video altogether, but essentially the Bush family was a part of this undergraduate secret society brotherhood started by the Skull and Bones. I did a ton of numerology work trying to connect Skull and Bones and their number 322 with J.D. Vance, and I didn't find anything substantial. J.D. Vance went to law school at Yale. He did not go as an undergrad, which is apparently where you have to go in order to be initiated into the Skull and Bones. So nothing was found there, but it is still interesting, and who knows, maybe there is something going on in the background, but I did just want to be honest with you about that so you guys know I'm always shooting straight with you. Because I have seen people say that Vance is a Skull and Bones member because of his association with Yale, but I couldn't find anything. But maybe. So yes, he is being shilled, platformed, and paid for by a massive reptilian billionaire. But unlike other podcasts and other individuals in this space, I want to make sure that I'm only giving you information that can be sourced, cited, and correctly identified and used in your learning and argumentation. So from there, what we end up seeing is we see Vance begin to have his business ventures backed by Theil. So in 2019 and 2020, Vance and Theil co-founded Neria Capital, which was backed from Theil and others such as Mark Anderson and Eric Schmidt. They invested in startups and they were trying to get people in relation to big tech. Remember what Peter Thiel's goal here is. Theil is trying to stretch out his influence, and he is doing so by shaping narratives, okay? So what we're seeing here is the beginning of Theil using his finances as his leverage point to get into higher realms of the political stratosphere, right? Remember, Theil is trying to shape the narrative of himself. He's trying to shape the narrative of what he calls the new right, and he believes J.D. Vance can be the face of the new right, which is why he's he's investing in things like Narya, right? This is also why he invests in all of these artists and all of these individuals who take place in this sort of alt-right space. And I don't mean alt-right in this sort of 2016 traditional sense. I'm talking in more of this political sphere of today, where it's more alternative, it's becoming cool to be right-wing, so Theil is injecting money and people and influence into that space. In fact, he gave $100 million to Vance to invest in these sort of tech circles. And once Narya was up and running and he really got Vance going, he then helped launch Vance's political rise. And in 2022, he helped him with his Senate campaign for Ohio. Theil was one of his biggest benefactors, and he cited around $15 million donated to the super PAC that was supporting Vance. Now, that is a lot of money to give someone running for Senate, right? And this is when he was introduced from here, once Vance became a senator, Theil used his connections to have a meeting between Trump and Vance. Now, this meeting absolutely helped to solidify Vance further as a serious candidate, right? This raised his political profile, and people started to really begin to take him seriously. Now, what does this show us, right? This shows us the influence that Theil has had directly on J.D. Vance, and it shows that the sort of control the narrative ideology that Theil sort of pushes and really has seeped into J.D. Vance, right? He's changed his name 3 times, and he's on this pursuit of constant upgrading, right? Before he was an undergraduate at Ohio, he was in the Marines, right? He goes Marines, college, law school, Silicon Valley startups, to being a populist senator. And suddenly he's having meetings with the former president of the United States, which end up sort of being this thing that shoehorns Trump into basically having to choose Vance as being his running partner. Because many people theorize that basically Theil, Elon Musk, and several other people sort of put Trump in a corner and told him, you're going to have J.D. Vance as your running partner because now you're going to have the PayPal mafia behind you if you don't. Because if you don't, you're going to have the PayPal mafia in front of you, and I don't think that you want that. Now, this definitely puts old Uncle Izzy definitely in the orb. I'm definitely in the orb now because I just came out and said it, right? So controlling the narrative is their main thing. The entire point of giving you all of that information is to, 1, give you a better background on who Theil is, 2, to show you how methodical their approach is, and 3, to show you this control the narrative style way of operations for these individuals, because we are going to see this is the pathology and methodology that goes into becoming a meme, embodying a meme, becoming something that is memetic, which is powerful as hell, okay? It is an inverse sigil ritual, and we're going to get into that as well. So let's keep going.
Meme history, the CIA, and Peter Theil Pepe.
In order to understand where we're going to be going from here, we have to do a little bit of history. We need to look into the origins of memes and memetics. Memetics are how ideas, symbols, behaviors, and narratives replicate, mutate, and spread between minds. And it also relates to the way that genes spread biologically. This is where the term comes from. In fact, it is based off of the theory of evolution. It is a culture-based evolution based on the Darwinian principles within the meme as a unit of culture. Okay? Essentially, it's the studying of ideas and how they spread virally. They're almost viral, right? Examples of various artists who sort of practice memetics are individuals like Andy Warhol, right? Andy Warhol created art based off of individualizing things that were mass-produced. This is why the Campbell's soup can was iconic, because these are things everyday people see and they associate and they understand what it is due to its mass productive quality. So reducing memetics into a meme A meme is essentially a unit of cultural information that is capable of being mass replicated. The success of a meme depends on the psychological fitness of the meme. This is why in my previous videos I discuss how good memes are archetypes. Archetypes are these sort of constructions that we understand on an innate level. Carl Jung believes that these were understood in the collective unconscious. I believe that they are formed and understood in the soul, right? And many people have spoken about archetypes a ton. You know what archetypes are: the hero's journey, the fool, the jester, the magician. We've talked about these a ton, and if you haven't seen these, you can go to my other videos or even to my Patreon if you need more information. Interestingly enough, this goes back historically. You could say symbols like the cross would be a meme. You could say the fish symbol in Christianity is another version of a meme, right? You understand what this image means when you look at them. Modern memes like the Pepe or the rare Vance, like we're going to be getting into, are memetic, viral units of culture. They're culture units. They're culture unit. Put me in the fucking orb, dude. Put me in the orb. Put me in the orb, crumble up the orb, throw it away. They're culture units. And Peter Theil funds individuals who understands memetics and memes. This is what he is using in order to control the narrative about himself, about his friend and constituent, J.D. Vance, in order to allow his control to be furthered, and he can consolidate that power further by memetically controlling the ideas of what the new right is. Because J.D. Vance is not the only individual that has been funded by Peter Theil. Theil has also funded people publicly like Curtis Yarvin, Michael Anton, James Paulos, Yoram Hazanyoy, and Talon, which is a funded attempt at building alternate narrative infrastructures. These are all individuals and programs that Theil has also funded publicly, and trust me, there are a lot of people behind the scenes Theil has also funded that you don't know about. Trust me, dude. Trust me. I'm not saying that I'm one of them. I'm definitely not, because this video is probably going to get me in a lot of trouble, actually. But there are people that he funds that you watch, and it would blow your fucking mind if you knew how many people were getting Theil bucks. We call them Theil bucks, actually. And that is one reason I have a Patreon, so you guys can get exclusive content, and so I never have to take a backdoor deal and have a gun to my head. I will always be able to say whatever I want because I will never take any funding. And if I do, it will be from you directly. It will never be from a Theil buck. And in fact, on the Patreon, I have included write-ups of each of these individuals I just listed off, because we're only going to focus on a couple of them. But one of the things with this that is super interesting is one thing that he also funded was the Founders Fund. The Founders Fund is something that finds people with memetic literacy. It is a venture arm that invests in Palantir, Andrewill, Rebellious Defense, and other things. This is the intelligence substrate of the memetic opus that he is starting. And one of the individuals who is a part of this is Jeff Giessa. A quick aside, one of the companies I just named was called Andrewill. Andrewill is the name of one of Aragon's swords. So this dude, Peter Theil, just absolutely loves Lord of the Rings. And it makes me kind of sad because it makes me now associate some archetypal parts of Lord of the Rings with defense contractors and the DoD and bombing children. I don't know. Brief aside, let's get back on track. Jeff Giessa, who is a part of Theil's network, published a essay titled Memetic Warfare, and this came out in the 2015 NATO Strategic Communications Center paper. It was a paper that officially formalized memes as psychological weapons, and it outlined training military officers to influence culture via the propagation of memes and other forms of propaganda. This means that the United States military officially recognizes memes as being psychological warfare apparatuses. The United States government views memes as an extension of forms of propaganda, and Peter Theil has networks, individuals within his networks, and funds these very things that is completely contracted with the CIA. Here is the thing. Peter Thiel's companies are able to operate outside of the laws of the government because they are private companies and they are private contractors. They can do whatever the fuck they want because they're privatized. This is why Palantir is allowed to operate in the way that it is. It's not illegal and it doesn't break any of your constitutional rights because it's a private company. Does it make you feel happy yet? Does it make you feel good yet? So this means in 2015, NATO recognized memes as being something that could affect things like elections. Wait a minute. I recall a bunch of comments telling me that I was wrong about memes. They told me I was wrong and I didn't know what I was talking about. Did you know that the 2016 US election, literally, NATO understood and affirmed that memetic warfare was literally a part of the 2016 election and was something that got Donald Trump elected, and it is recognized by NATO. So, just so you know, okay, guys? In fact, to further this, the CIA has been outsourcing the studying of memes and memetics since the 1970s, before memes were even a thing. The key institutions were the Stanford Research Institute. Then we have the RAND Corporation, that is a CIA adjacent and heavily contracted apparatus that was a social contagion that modeled how rumors spread, narratives were coerced, and ideological warfare. This came out in a paper from 1984. Again, that was published through NATO, called Information Operations and Proto-Memetics. We then have the Tavistock Institute that specialized in mass psychology and identity formation that advised the CIA, MI6, and other psychological operations contractors on cultural imprinting and population emotional management control. The Department of Defense also had an information warfare tasking group in the late 80s that studied how narratives spread through populations, both semiotically and linguistics, meaning symbols and language. Isn't that weird? It's almost like that's what memes are, right? So everybody's saying that I'm a crazy guy. Weird, right? And just wait. There's fucking more. I almost said don't wait. Just put me in the orb, dude. Because in 2009, the CIA started working with Applied Memetics LLC that was contracted by the Voice of America Intelligence Front and Defense Media Analytics programs to study and to psychologically use memes as a warfare tactic. Who remembers what the Voice of America is? Anybody from my Patreon know? The Voice of America was the arm of the CIA broadcasting the CIA started, that Ronald Reagan started, that Tucker Carlson's father was the head of, and that his broadcasting was used in order to run psychological operations on people in other countries during the South American Contras. And to further prove my point, in the 1980s, Oxford, Stanford, Santa Fe Institute, and MIT all had meme and cultural evolution and psychology things going back to the 1980s, and Applied Memetics has been around, so I don't want to hear it. Memes are a fucking type of warfare. This is an information war. When Alex Jones has been saying for 35 years, this is an information war, and I used to scoff and be like, this guy's nuts, right? Obviously, I love Alex Jones, but he is so right, because the CIA and these different government apparatuses have been operating in a different way than we even understand for like 60 years, really longer, right? So everything you consume, literally every single thing that you consume in media-wise is a front and an assault on your spirit and on your mind, right? Your mind is an extension of your spirit and your body is an extension of that, right? So everything that you take in is affecting you, dude. That's what this is. That's literally what this is. Why do you think billionaires like Peter Thiel are hiring people who wrote essays that formalized memes being a type of warfare into fucking NATO, dude? We got more. And this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning, folks. Oh, again, everything is sourced in a document on the Patreon. YouTube does not allow you to upload documents, but Patreon does. So you could get the full sourcing there, and there's tons of resources, links, papers, everything. You could read it all there. In fact, since Thiel's been working with Giessa, he did not only write that one paper. There's been more. There is the paper from 2016. It's time to embrace memetic warfare. There's also hacking hearts and minds. How memetic warfare is transforming cyber war. 2017. Global nonlinear memetic warfare is here. Also 2017. Practical recommendations for NATO members on memetic warfare. The list goes on. In fact, in one of the essays, he talks about how the best way to counter ISIS is to unleash an army of trolls upon them. This is a literal quote. This is a literal quote. The way to defeat ISIS is through the memes. Is through trolls. You can't make this stuff up. And this guy is closely related with Thiel. He understands 4chan. They have taken 4chan and put it into the mind of somebody like JD Vance. They literally injected JD Vance in his head brain, what it is to be a meme. Because remember, what is the goal? What is the narrative? To control the narrative for the new right. If you control the narrative, you can control the outcome. They are controlling everything for the new right in order to get the outcomes that they want. This is why JD Vance goes by JD Vance and not Justin Bowman. Okay? Which one would you vote for? I'm Justin Bowman, and I'm here. I'm Justin Bowman, and I'm here because I really want to be the senator. Or are you going to vote for JD Vance? Which one sounds like an American senator to you? Now, to continue what we're learning right now, the Applied Memetics LLC is led by somebody named Dan Gabriel. He is the founder and the CEO. Dan Gabriel is a documented former CIA operations officer, okay? He has a decade of experience of working with the CIA. Remember, Palantir is contracted with the CIA, and Palantir is owned and operated by Peter Thiel. Now we get to 4chan. 4chan is constantly talking about something called a glowy. If you know what a glowy is, great. If you don't know, even better. It means you're not chronically online like I am. Glowy is essentially internet slang for a Fed. It is someone who is suspected of being an undercover federal agent, often FBI, CIA, or other, because they basically glow in the dark, okay? It is a joke that is attributed to somebody I actually just did a video on Patreon of Terry Davis. Terry Davis was an eccentric genius programmer who created the Temple OS operating system. And he said, the feds watch me. I can tell they're feds because they glow in the dark. Sort of like when I receive comments on Instagram telling me that I need to take matters into my own hands. I get these comments all the time. You are never going to get me. And in fact, the glowy I was telling you about earlier, Jeff Giessa, he is more than just a guy who like worked with NATO and who works for a company that Peter Thiel owns. Peter Thiel was directly his mentor, and he was literally his protege. Peter Theil called him his protege, and he worked directly under Theil, and he was deeply involved in online influence strategy, okay? And he found something called Sovereign Magazine. Now, if you know where I'm going with this, great, and if you don't, even better. Because Sovereign Magazine is what something called Sovereign House is under. Sovereign House is literally a members club of individuals who are on the Theil Bucks payroll. This is a members club that operates in Dime Square. And I'm going to be honest, I have probably already told you too much, and I'm going to leave the rest of it alone. If you want more information on this part, you can go to my Patreon. I'm going to get myself into some deep shit right now. I'm just going to be completely honest. So, yeah, you can put me in the orb, but this is basically where everybody goes if they are getting Theil bucks and they are spreading Theil's influence. But apparently he pays really well, and people love that Theil bucks money. So let's proceed. So now I have gone on and I have proved all of the government's involvement when it comes to memes, memetics, etc. I have now connected them to Peter Theil, and I have then connected them with JD Vance. Now what we're going to do is we are going to describe the thesis of this video, how JD Vance took the power of an Egyptian chaos god and harnessed it this Halloween.
4chan history, Pepe. Kek the Chaos God meme magic. Daddy-o baby.
What we have now is we have to talk about where the Pepe meme comes from. And I've discussed this in previous videos, so if you've seen that one, great. If not, we're going to explain it again. Basically, super long story short, in 2005, the first iteration of Pepe was born, and it was drawn by a comic book artist. His name is Matt Fury, and basically it was a part of a internet comic series. It was just a green anthropomorphic frog with a humanoid body. Now, what Pepe became this meme that essentially could be amorphous and could sort of form himself to whatever an internet situation was. He became a rare Pepe, and these were Pepes that took on the form of anything, any situation, any climate, anything. People would draw their own, happy, sad, scared, powerful, right? Thus the rare Pepe emerged. Next, we have the origin of the word kek. Kek is a Korean onomatopoeia for laughter. So just like in the US, we have ha ha ha. In Mexico, they have ja ja ja. In Korea, they have kek, K-E-K. It is sort of like LOL, right? Well, in internet culture, kek became popular from the video game World of Warcraft, where players of the Horde faction saw the message LOL. It was then translated as kek for the opponent's alliance players. The term was embraced by online communities because of its phonetic similarity to laughter. Now, this was then later adopted by 4chan, and people would say things like top kek, top funny, top LOL. It's the funniest thing you could say. Now, this one puts me in the orb because I know all of this offhand without having to read it. But it also relates to something even further, even deeper, right? Because this is where a strange sort of thing began to happen. Somebody did some research and they found that kek, K-E-K, was also the name of a primordial deity from ancient Egypt that had the head and the body. It had the head of a frog and the body of a human. It was an anthropomorphized frog god. And this frog god actually, strangely enough, had hieroglyphics that featured people, what looked like people sitting at a computer. So you now have kek, you have top kek, you have kek being infused with 4chan culture. And now you have people who have found the face of 4chan, which is Pepe, being synonymous with an ancient chaos deity known as Kek. And it is a deity that literally is the deity of chaos and darkness, but it is specifically the deity of chaos and darkness before the dawn. So you have the infusion of all of these things. This is not happenstance. There are two things going on here. You either have individuals who are working within the memetic warfare, applied memetics, DARPA, DOD, CIA funded areas creating this stuff, or you have the emergence of the spiritual coincidence where this is emerging, right? On this channel, we don't believe in coincidences. I personally believe that this deity manifested itself on the internet in this way. That's what I believe. I'm a spiritual person. You can believe whatever you want, but all of these coincidences are too much to just be a random happenstance. Look at all these coincidences. There's 9,000 of them. So now you have rare Pepes. You have Kek, Top Kek. We also had the creation of Kekistan, which is a nation that is a 4chan real. So many memes. I was there in 2016. This is the beginning of meme magic. Now, meme magic started off as sort of this idea that basically algorithms and AI could not read memes when they were posted to like Instagram. So they would sort of get around certain blockades and certain restrictions, right? But also the 2016 election, there was a certain fervor and a certain energy that was behind Donald Trump, and it was being pushed by 4chan, right? Things like you can't stump the Trump, him being a centipede. If you know, you know. If you don't know, whatever. I'm not going to harbor on it too long. But this is where the idea of meme magic really started to arise. And interestingly enough, this is literally the kind of things that you saw with individuals like Aleister Crowley and all of these people of the past. Symbols, sigils, these things are important. These symbols, as we see with the creation of applied memetics and all of these different, agencies and different companies and all this stuff, just like the name Palantir being used by a company now, like all of these things are very important. Symbology is the language of the elite. And when you learn this language, it becomes extremely important, because now what you have is the merging. You have this ancient god from 4,000 years ago being re-emerged as an agent of the internet and of chaos. Very much 4chan is the most chaotic place on the internet, right? And now it's being merged with all of these symbols, and it all just perfectly lines up. This is an egregorical archetypal deity manifesting and creating itself. I don't care what anybody says. That's what this is. And what you see with people like currently these members of the left or Antifa or whatever they are, who are trying to dress up like a frog, like the frog at these rallies and at these protests or these festivals, as some of you are calling them, they're trying to take the meme magic energy back from the new right and from the alt-right, because this imagery is working. Pepe is a powerful image to the right. It is literally a memetic sigil now. It is a literal magical sigil. And it doesn't matter what anyone says or believes. That's what it is, because not only do people believe that, but that is the energy that it exudes. The only way to describe what was happening in 2016 was literally meme magic. That was the only way to describe it. Obviously, there are these literal, because people couldn't understand, AI couldn't understand the logarithmic functions. It felt magical. That's like the only way. That's why it's called meme magic, because it felt like meme magic. And just like you see the left trying to steal the frog symbol, what they then did was they took the concept of the rare Pepe and they applied it to JD Vance. Now, this is interesting because the emergence of the rare Vance came out. And as somebody who loves memes, I thought these were absolutely hilarious. And personally, I was like, dude, these have got to be pissing JD Vance off because these are so good. You know, is Mummy's Good Boy and all of these hilarious memes are, you know, becoming a part of the zeitgeist. So much that there was entire subreddits dedicated to creating and dispersing and the collecting of rare Vances. So just like rare Pepes, right? Like a rare Pepe, people had rare Pepe collections, much like a baseball card collection or a Pokemon card collection. There was rare Pepe collections. And this branched off and became rare Vance collections. People were sharing their rare Vances. People were collecting rare Vances, and they were super funny. And it was a really great way to get a jab at the now Vice President of the United States. And this is when it happened. Right when all of the chaos begins, when it comes to Kirk and the assassination and the stories not adding up with Tyler Robinson and all of this other stuff, you have JD Vance on Halloween dressing up like a rare Vance. He owned the meme. And what this does, this came at a very pivotal time to the point where I now believe it was orchestrated, because here's the deal. JD Vance was in a unique position where he's very young, he's very charismatic, whether you like him or not, he seems to be a charismatic guy. Takes questions on the fly, all of these things, right? Well, he was beginning to get a lot of criticism from what I call the new right, you know, the part of the sort of culture that Theil is directing all of these efforts towards, right? He's getting a lot of flack primarily because of his position on a certain country in the Middle East, right? There's also some things going on with his wife, and his wife not being white, okay? These are not my positions. These are positions of people online. And we suddenly see a few things happen, right? We see the death of Charlie Kirk. But what we see is the emergence of JD Vance then taking questions publicly in an open forum style setting. People just asking him questions off the cuff. Then we see him take another trip to this unspecified country in the Middle East, which he's being criticized for his backing of. And instead of doing the traditional trip to the Wailing Wall, and I did say Wailing Wall, he goes to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Interesting. Now, he has gone to the Wailing Wall in the past, but now he has gone to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Interesting. What we then see is we see him Eric Kirk embrace him in a very intense, sensual way. And she states, "There is no man like my husband, but JD Vance is pretty close." And I think that my quote is pretty close. I don't think that's exactly what she said, but it's something along there. The real quote will be right here. So now we see all of the things that JD Vance is being criticized of by this very prominent new right. It is the wife aspect, because now people are starting to quote unquote ship Erica Kirk and JD Vance. Am I one of those people? I see a little something there. I've been hugged by women before. I can see the kind of hug she gave. I'm just saying, I wouldn't be surprised if by next election cycle you see the two of them becoming a thing. Just saying. We also see him sort of doing this thing at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, emboldening his Christian base, and it also looks like he's taking a step back from that one specific area in the Middle East. Interestingly enough, that one specific area in the Middle East, there is a weapons deal, the weapons deal, that also ends in 2028, which would be when Vance would be elected if he was to run and win the presidency. So we now see that angle of it. And then the icing on the cake, he then owns and embodies, specific word embodies, the one thing that has made him look specifically weak this entire time, and that is the rare Vance meme. The rare Vance meme shows him as a spoiled, pedantic, little bratty individual, but what he does is he owns it and embodies it and flips it on its head. And he does so in conjunction with all of these other things going on at the same exact time. The meme that was used to mock and dehumanize him is then used as something to show his charisma and his mythical qualities of being able to be above it while existing in it, taking the heat while laughing at himself, further humanizing him. This humanized him more when the whole point of the meme was to dehumanize him. Memes are symbols. Symbols are sigils. This is a reverse sigil embodiment. He embodied a sigil or symbol that was meant to be and represent a certain thing. He became it, owned it, and thus harnessed all of the energy everybody put into making them, all of the energy people put into observing them, and because they are an extension of the rare Pepe meme, he takes in all of that chaos energy. Now, here's the thing. The people who tried to own the frog image, the people of the left, this is what always happens. They don't understand memetics. The left can't meme. That is a meme in and of itself. That is how Memetic, the right, operates. And now that this happened, I'm being super serious. This is a form of memetic warfare. This is psycho-spiritual warfare that just happened. And I know a lot of you guys aren't going to think it's as serious as I think it is. This is like a massive thing. This is like a literal massive memetic cultural event. There's a reason that NATO recognizes memes as psychological warfare tactics. Vance just did something like, dude, completely unfathomable. Like, truly. And it's exactly every single thing was timed perfectly. Because if you know anything about Halloween or the history of Halloween, Halloween is based off of the Celtic holiday of Samhain. Samhain represents the day where the veil between the spirit realm and the material realm is the thinnest. Why is that? Well, because astrologically, the reason the time change is right after Halloween is because it's when the nights begin to become extremely long. And Samhain represented this going into the underworld and literally communing with the souls during this time. This is why the Catholic Church then, when trying to convert all of the pagans of Northern Europe, used Samhain, turned it into All Saints' Day, because it represents the 3 days that Christ went into hell in the Catholic faith, went into hell and got the souls of the departed, right? He literally, he did ritual. He did a ritual. He did a chaos magic ritual. Because that's the day the veil is the thinnest. And he embodied it. And he took all of that energy. So what he did in 1 week, right, was he basically flipped the script on every single part of him that was being criticized. And he owned and embodied a literal sigil that was meant to mock him. And he furthered the mythos of him through it. Now the question is was this planned, and is this organic? Or is this something that Theil and his literal cultural memetic team of super freaks put together, right? Like, that's the question, is how organized and orchestrated is all of this stuff? That's the question. Because, you know, it's one thing to be like, oh, he just dressed up as the Thing. It's a completely different thing when you realize the people in his corner are responsible for literally creating literature to make NATO recognize memes as a formalized type of warfare. Like, that's like what it is. And those people work for Peter Theil, who's a billionaire. Maybe, just maybe, The rare Vance memes were actually started by Theil and his friends in order for this same move to be made by JD Vance in the first place. Maybe that was the entire point. To not only harness the spiritual side of it, because maybe they don't believe in the spiritual side of it. Maybe they don't understand Keck and the relation, and maybe they don't believe in that. It doesn't matter, because even if you don't believe in it in a spiritual realm, right? Carl Jung himself would look at this and the collective unconscious and the psychological level of it, and he would 100% agree that he just took the power back from that. And I think that that is massive. And I think that that's huge. So maybe the people behind the scenes orchestrated the entire thing, because all in 1 week, every single thing of Vance that was being criticized has been turned on its head. And now he looks prime prepped and ready to go to be the presidential candidate for the Republican Party coming in 2028, specifically when this weapons deal ends with that one particular country and that one particular part of the world that we're not allowed to talk about. And in case you don't believe me, in 2016, the Obama administration signed a 10-year military aid memorandum of understanding, an MOU, with that country in particular, totaling $38 billion. That is from 2019 to 2028. It is for weapons, missile defense systems, aircraft, and intelligence systems from Peter Theil, with the largest military assistance package in U.S. history, and it ends in 2028, right when Vance is going to be running for president. So you can call me a conspiracy theorist all you want, but those are the hard facts. And everything I have said can be checked in the sourcing on my Patreon. To my YouTube people, I'm going to hop over to the Patreon and further this discussion on the rare Vances. I think I just dropped a bomb on y'all. So let me know what you think in the comments. Love you guys. Praying for you guys. I'll see you over on the Patreon, because I think this is the one that I deserve for you guys to go over there now. Peace.